I gotta say, and I'm friendly with the ladies on The View, but they didn't say anything about this week. Nothing. You know, because it's never been their thing to weigh in on the issues.
Look, did y'all really think we weren't gonna talk about Jimmy Kimmel? I mean, have you watched the show over the last 29 seasons? So you know, no one silences us.
So Whoopi and The View are in full panic mode right now, and honestly, it's hilarious. Last week, Bill Maher roasted them for being too scared to talk about Jimmy Kimmel's issue.
But I gotta say, and I'm friendly with the ladies on The View, but they didn't say anything about this week. Nothing. You know, because it's never been their thing to weigh in on the issues. It's just, you know, it's just an upbeat party show. That's why they hired people named Joy and Sonny and Whoopi. But you know, girls, let me go out strong, okay? It won't kill you. I promise. It's happened to me, and I may go out after this show. We don't know. We don't know.
The View has never skipped a headline since day one. Remember when that former panelist admitted they sometimes get just hours to prep before tackling major controversies? Exactly. So when Jimmy Kimmel's suspension hit the news, fans were stunned that The View went live pretending like nothing happened. Especially since it was their own network, ABC, that benched him. That's why Bill Maher roasted them, calling them out for being too scared to jeopardize their comfy jobs by even mentioning Kimmel's name. But here's the real kicker. The View finally broke their silence, and what they said left everyone talking.
Did y'all really think we weren't gonna talk about Jimmy Kimmel? I mean, have you watched the show over the last 29 seasons? So you know, no one silences us. And to all my friends in Italy who reached out, you have to know it's okay, we're still here, we're still broadcasting. And when the news broke last week about Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, we took a breath to see if Jimmy was going to say anything about it first. We did the same thing with Stephen Colbert.
Now that's just not true. And I'll explain exactly why The View finally decided to talk about Jimmy Kimmel in a second. But this claim that they paused to hear Kimmel's side, and supposedly did the same with Colbert, is pure fiction. Let's rewind. When Colbert was fired, The View didn't hesitate for a second. They jumped straight into their opinions without waiting for any official statement. And honestly, since when has Whoopi or her panel ever held back on giving their take about anything? Exactly never. So Whoopi's explanation doesn't hold up. But enough talk. Let's roll the clip and see how it really went down.
Then our show was on tape on Friday. But we are live here today. And we're getting into it now. Okay? Because to be clear, you cannot like a show. Now, I want to make sure I got this right. To be clear, you cannot like a show and it can go off the air. Someone can say something they shouldn't and get taken off the air, but the government cannot apply pressure to force someone to be silenced.
Did you catch how unusually careful Whoopi was while reading that statement? It was almost funny. She looked terrified, like one wrong word could get her in trouble, or even cost her the job. Since when has Whoopi Goldberg ever been that precise about reading from a teleprompter? Exactly never. So let's drop the act because that nervous delivery said it all. And here's the twist. Jimmy Kimmel is already back on ABC after what now appears to have been just a brief suspension. The View knew he was returning, which is exactly why they finally decided to speak up. Suddenly bold, but only because the coast was clear. Meanwhile, Bill Maher wasn't about to let them off the hook that easily.
The FCC says they're going to go after maybe next The View. They got a new show lined up. It's going to be great. It's called Morning Wood with James Wood.
Ma didn't hold back. He outright mocked The View, joking that they could be next on ABC's chopping block after Jimmy's suspension, maybe even replaced with something fresh. And honestly, I had the same thought. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not waving the cancel The View flag. Love them or hate them, they've earned their spot in daytime TV. But here's the real issue. They shoot first and fact-check later. They'll twist a headline, stretch a story, and present it as truth before the facts even surface. That's not courage, that's carelessness. If anything, this moment should be their wake-up call. No one's saying they need to vanish, but they do need to remember that credibility still counts. Because if they keep playing loose with the truth, Maher's joke might end up being a warning. And yes, he had words for Jimmy Kimmel too.
And, Jimmy, look, I don't think what he said was exactly right. I don't. We don't agree on that. He didn't lose his job for it. He said the MAGA crowd was trying to characterize the assassin as anything but one of them because the 22-year-old kid, his family was MAGA. As if a 22-year-old with a trans girlfriend never rebelled against their family. But was he on the left? I don't know that either. And I hate to do this. I'm tipping the end of the show, which I work so hard on to keep a secret from the rest of the show. But it's too relevant. What I'm talking about at the end, I'm going to have to say now, which is that it is a fool's errand to try to say that these nuts who do these things are any team.
Thank you. Credit where credit's due. Maher is one of the few voices on the left brave enough to state the obvious. Jimmy was wrong. While most comedians twisted themselves into knots defending Kimmel, claiming his comments were harmless, Maher cut through the noise. He said it plainly, Jimmy crossed a line. But he also argued that losing his job over it would have been excessive. And honestly, he's right on both counts. Kimmel shouldn't have been fired, and technically he wasn't. What he got was a carefully packaged slap on the wrist, a suspension designed more for optics than consequence. ABC wasn't disciplining him. They were saving face. They wanted the public to think they took action while quietly planning his return. Maher called it exactly as it was, and that rare honesty is what truly set him apart.
Jimmy has every right to be wrong, but look at this guy. He was doing video games with furries. He was on a game called Furry Shades of Gay 3. This kid is in his basement with VR goggles on, getting virtually ass-fucked by a cartoon wombat? And you're gonna put politics into this?
Bill kept the pressure on with sharp, sarcastic jabs aimed squarely at Jimmy Kimmel for rushing to blame MAGA. The point behind Maher's mockery was crystal clear. Jimmy should have done his research instead of politicizing a tragedy to score easy applause. A quick fact-check would have shown there were no MAGA links, no political motive, just a deeply troubled individual. But Kimmel, eager to feed a narrative, went all in without proof. That's why Maher's words cut so deep, because they were true. Jimmy's reaction wasn't brave or insightful. It was reckless, partisan, and embarrassingly careless. In the end, Maher's message rang loud. Facts will always matter more than spin.
This kid doesn't belong in either party. He belongs in a straitjacket. He's an outpatient who should not be out. But you have the right to be wrong, or to have any opinion you want. That's what the First Amendment is all about. I was defending it last week on this show against what they're doing in England against the left. Come on, guys, be fair.
Let's pause and unpack this. Jimmy Kimmel's suspension wasn't really about what he said. It was about money. The moment he launched his anti-MAGA rant, Disney, ABC's parent company, reportedly saw its stock plunge by about 2%, wiping out nearly $4 billion in market value within hours. That kind of loss doesn't go unnoticed. Investors panic, executives scramble, and suddenly, a comedian's comments become a corporate crisis. ABC didn't sideline Kimmel for ethics or optics, it was damage control. When billions are on the line, even big names become expendable. Jimmy wasn't just suspended. He was sacrificed to protect Disney's wallet.
There is no organization. Antifa is a broad designation with no identifiable leader and no observable plan, like the Democrats. So So, Jimmy, let me just say, pal, you did a great, funny show for 2 decades. You should be proud of that. If this firing goes for you the way it did for me, you'll get 23 years on a better network.
Ma couldn't finish his monologue without taking aim at the Democratic Party. And honestly, who could blame him? The DNC has been in disarray since its crushing loss in last year's elections. Once a polished political powerhouse, it now resembles a circus scrambling for relevance. There's no strong leader, no unified message, and no clear direction, just noise. Instead of strategy, we see theatrics and shallow stunts meant to keep the base entertained. Ma's critique struck a nerve because it was spot on. The Democrats aren't leading the conversation anymore. They're chasing it, fumbling for purpose and waiting for someone to take control.
Although Disney is letting the so-called comedy show return after a week's suspension, some broadcasters are refusing to let his show back on air. Nexstar Media Group, which is the largest local TV broadcasting company in the US, announced that its stations will focus on continuing to produce local news and other programming relevant to their respective markets. What good news. Look, the company says, we made a decision last week to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live following what ABC referred to as Mr. Kimmel's ill-timed and insensitive comments at a critical time in our national discourse. We stand by that decision, pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue.
Now here's where things get interesting. Some media outlets are reportedly hesitant to bring Jimmy Kimmel back onto their networks, fearing it could hurt their market interests. That hesitation could spell real financial trouble for ABC, especially if those partner networks usually pay hefty fees to air Jimmy Kimmel Live. When money's on the line, hesitation is a red flag. But beyond dollars and ratings, there's a bigger message here. People are tired of the endless cycle of woke grandstanding. What once seemed profitable and untouchable is starting to backfire. Viewers are tuning out, advertisers are cautious, and corporate allies are quietly backing away.
This also comes after Sinclair, the broadcasting company that makes up America's largest ABC affiliate groups, announced that it would be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. And you know what? They know that the audience has had enough of Jimmy Kimmel. Let's just look back at some of his comedy content. Here he is celebrating when they tried to censor Donald Trump.
Trump has been suspended from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and even Snapchat. But don't worry, Mr. President, there are still plenty of apps you do have access to. You still have Spotify to drown out the sound of millions of people cheering as you leave. You still have Pet Finder since you're on the outs with Mike Pence. You have Cameo, which will soon be your primary source of income.
So what does all of this really tell us? Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, Bill Maher's ruthless takedown, and The View's shaky defense all point to something much bigger than one late-night host slipping up. This is about power, money, and a culture finally reaching its breaking point. Disney didn't suspend Kimmel out of moral outrage. They did it because billions vanished overnight. The View only spoke up once it was safe, proving their so-called boldness was just for show. Meanwhile, Maher stood apart, calling it like he saw it, even when it meant criticizing his own side. And now, networks are hesitant to even air Kimmel, afraid the backlash outweighs the benefit. The message is loud and clear. Audiences are waking up. And the old formula of forced outrage and performative wokeness isn't selling anymore. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.